Alrighty, so now for our Thursday night item, not a big surprise. The order goes back to kind of our normal order. So now for part 2 of your analysis, right? So now that we started mapping out the brains, then the intro, let's finish this technical deep dive in the remaining blocks and any hidden scripts that are in there. So we're going to continue working on that README file, okay? Oh, let me go here because I still have it up from the last one. Okay, so this is that starter, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide you in a second the link to the second half and you'll just copy that in. Okay, so now again, because our templates are different, but I'm just giving you like, here's a guideline of what you're going to do, right? You're required to do 2 commits here. So you're going to identify that bottom half of the half of functional blocks and the top level classes, right? So again, this would be based on your particular template. And then what you will do is do some scripts. And then also, let's see, did we do the footer on? Yeah, so the footer is on this one. So we finish out the content, which could be redundant. So once you look at one of your content blocks, and I kind of covered that last time, right? So as an example, let me actually show you what I mean by that, because I think that's helpful. So when I look at this index file right now, I'm going to end up making this pages instead of anchors, right? So this is something because my template came with this menu as anchor links. Now, how do I know that? I'll probably have covered this in attendance, as I can tell by this in the URL, okay? But this particular section, even though it has photos in it, right, these particular ones are pretty much redundant. What's changing in this case is the content inside of them, but probably the HTML structure and the classes are not that different. But I could hit inspect and I go, oh, section. Okay, here's a resume section. Here's my classes, right? So here's a skills section. But when I dig down a little further, I probably will see, okay, so container, and now I'm actually looking at some of the other CSS things that were brought in for classes itself, so section title. And this is where, again, I could use my dev tools to see where these are coming from, because I know it might be a little confusing, as I said before, that these are not all Bootstrap classes. These are going to be classes for other libraries that are built into your particular template, right? So if I drop that down, then I see, okay, there's a header 1, there's a header 2, so that's that whole section. And if I click here, and this is again where using dev tools can really be helpful, because as I scroll over, that section, right, then gets repeated down here in the resume section. So it's not that I necessarily have to start over, but having identified one of those sections, because I see, oh, you know what, within that particular section, there's a div here that contains those same exact classes. So if I've done one, I have a good idea of the content. Now, when we go to clean this up, you may end up deleting a lot of these sections, which is fine. That's why you don't have to analyze every one of them. But if there's a particular layout you like, then that might be something. And this is why going and having that template somewhere else can be helpful. Okay, let's go back here. All right, so you're going to finish this up, right? Whatever you didn't cover, right? These are just examples. Again, it depends on yours and those top level classes, and then you do a commit and then go through. Now, this is where most of them will contain, and I'll show you mine in a second, right? These JS files. And again, not again, but JavaScript is something, hopefully you're continuing on with web development. You will take a JavaScript class probably with me. And in this case, we're not teaching you JavaScript, you're just identifying, because we have both classes associated with these libraries, but also JavaScript scripts. Now, where do we see these? Oh, I didn't bring in that second one. I'll do that in a second. So let me actually bring over my VS Code and then go into my vendor. And actually, I would start in my index file, because once I go through all this content at the very bottom, most likely, now it could be at the top too. So that's where your particular template might be different. I'm going to have to scroll because there's a lot of content in that index file. Again, I will most likely get rid of it. Okay, I see the footer. Okay, good. That's part of what I need to do. And then at the very end, now this is something, as you learn JavaScript, you learn they didn't necessarily have to put them at the bottom. Okay. And then they actually have some custom JavaScript, but these are because not all the functionality is in classes. Some of them, like a pure counter, never showed up in this style, but it is actually a JavaScript. There's some kind of counter on there that JavaScript does. So if you end up using that, you would just, if you have, now you shouldn't have any issues because really you're just modifying content, but it's just good to know if these, what these vendor files are adding functionality to your page. Okay. So just identifying them is really what you're doing here. Okay. So let's actually go back to this README file and now go into our example because this will be the second half, right? So go back to that, right? Grab this and then just copy it to the end, right? So I'm going to copy it here because it ends up, right? So now this is, we did these, let's see, where did we end up? So section 3. Okay, so section 2 is what we did on part 1. So now, isn't there a section 3 there? Did I not grab it all? Section 3 inventory bottom half. Just making sure I copied it in. Footer. I must have. I just don't see. Maybe I'm just going too fast. That's very like me to do that. Is to go, oh, there it is. Okay. What it was is because I didn't have an additional line, it was hard to see. So then this is where I'd go through and identify those particular different sections that I hadn't covered in my part 1, and then also cover the scripts and making sure I've done the footer as well. Okay. So that's what you're going to do. And again, I can't emphasize how important this is for the next step you're going to do. Because if you just start trying to modify a template without taking some time to identify, it just can be a pain. Okay, so you have 2 commit messages, one for the rest of the content and the high level, and then for the footer and the vendor scripts. Now, if you don't have any, which I'd be shocked of, but if you don't have any, just note I didn't have any, and then do your commit history for your P0 and your public. Okay, all right, have fun with this. Reach out for help if you need it.